Hey, Mud Dog, how you doing, man?
Fantastic, Jim Bob. Thanks for asking again.
Hey, it's good to see you. I know I keep seeing weather reports out there from Colorado. How cold is it today?
Woke up to 30 degrees.
Oh no! So the snow's staying on the ground, huh?
I don't know. I'm not going out there. It's 30 degrees. You know, I'm a key boy. I like the the keys down in Central America. So
I
I just
don't
turned the
blame
heat
you,
on.
man. I'll tell you. I'll tell you a little short story here. I swear this is honest to God truth. I helped a buddy of mine when we were in college. We both graduated, got our degrees. He got a job teaching at Purdue. And him and his girlfriend were going back there. And he had an old, I think it was a 1964 VW microbus, and the three of us, we loaded all of his worldly possessions in that thing. We loaded up, and we went back to Purdue, and I helped him move in, and he started classes. I was there for about 3 weeks, and in February, and dude, I'll tell you the truth. I got the firsthand upper class what it's like to live in the snow and all that stuff. I ain't ever doing it again. If I can avoid it, I'm never going there again. But yeah, so I feel for you, brother. I
It's
know
all right.
that I
It's
know that cold weather. Hey, before we get going, let's remind everybody that's out there that what's going on with us, Mud. Um, and what we'd like you, the audience, to do to help us out on this new adventure that we're on. You can watch this podcast in several different places. You can watch it on my YouTube page, which is The World According to Jim Bob. You find that on YouTube. You find it on Rumble. But hey, here's the big news. I know you know, Mud, but everybody out there, we're on Spotify now. All of our previous episodes are up there, will be up there.
right.
And we are planning in the very near future being on several other platforms. So here's what we'd like you to do: like us when you go to these places, like us, subscribe to the podcast or the channel, wherever you go, ring that bell up there if it has a bell. I don't understand everything about all this technology stuff and online, but they tell me, our super producer tells me that the more you do, the more you click, the more you ring, all that, it helps us go out to more people. So um, do those things if you will. And most important of all, Mud, I would like to ask your friends and my friends and everybody out there that's just being introduced to this is get a hold of your friends and send them a link to this podcast, and that will, above everything else, help us grow this, what Mud and I like to think of as a sanctuary of truth in this untruthful world. What do you have to say about that, Mud?
Well, I totally agree with everything you said. And that kind of brings me to an issue that we left on the table last week, which is I promised the viewers and listeners that I was looking into this pharmaceutical thing, and I unfortunately have to report that I don't have a solution to the question that I raised last week about pharmaceutical things like the COVID boosters and stuff that are being without getting anybody in trouble. And that's one thing that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I'm not, but at the same time, I'm not going to I'm not going to bring up a topic that I can't back up with hard fact. So I'm not disregarding the issue. It'll come in time, but right now it's a little too premature for releasing information that could potentially ruin a person's career or their livelihood. And I'm just not going to do it. But I didn't forget about last week's issue about the pharmaceutical stuff and the COVID-19 boosters and stuff that are being peddled on the American citizens, regardless of what you think as far, if it's a good thing or you believe in the COVID shot. We talked a little bit about, the difference between vaccines versus what's being put out there. So
Right.
I just wanted to lead in with that I didn't forget about you. It's just a little.
And let me add this, Bud, that just so everybody knows what we're talking about, if you go to, if you go back a couple of years and what was happening with the COVID and the shots and everything, a lot of people lost their jobs over that because they refused to get the poke. And now there's just certain things that people working for different companies aren't allowed to talk about. And some of this stuff is being kept from the public, right?
Correct.
And so, and anybody out there that would like to give us information, um, we're easy to find. Just go to those places where you're watching us and send us an email. And but we are following up on this, right, Mud?
It's what I call a whip, a work in progress. Correct.
There you go. Okay. Well,
But thank everybody for tuning in and giving us a shot and listening to our candor. I really appreciate it. I know you do too, JB.
I certainly do.
If we can if we can stimulate your mind, if we can bring a little joy, a little smile to your face every day, that's kind of what the whole thing is about.
That's right. Well, let's get going. I guess the biggest story this last week um, is probably the Super Tuesday election. I think altogether with all the territories and everything, there was 24, 21, 22, 23, 24. I forget how many different actual elections were going on. And I guess the way that we could, in a nutshell, put the whole thing together is number one on the Republican side of the primary. Um, Trump swept. I think there was one state, where was it? Vermont, I think, or somewhere up in New England, where Nikki Haley actually got. I think she got 94%, or she got 3 or 4% more of the vote than Trump did. But that's the only state so far that Trump hasn't won. And the same is true for Biden. Biden has been. He hasn't had the same competition that Trump has had, but he's just been racking up the electoral votes. Now, one thing that I noticed out of this whole thing, Mud, I don't know if you watched much of Super Tuesday, but um, when the votes were coming in on TV, I was watching it on either Fox or Newsmax. I forget which one, but they would show the state that would come in, and then they'd show, and of course they'd show Republican, and then they'd show the Democrat, and I was jotting them down because I was very surprised. In fact, I waited for them to come around a few times, and I was jotting down a few of the states' total votes the total number of Republican votes in, let's say, Texas, and then I was jotting down the total number of votes in of the Democrats in Texas, and it seemed to me, now I was doing this on the run, but it seemed to me like the Democrats weren't getting anywhere near the number of total votes in a state that the Republicans were. So I went back and I tried to put it all together like a couple of days afterwards. And they don't. I don't think they want us to know, Mud. I seriously, it took me hours to go all different places and put this together. But I want to give you a little idea of what the vote took place. What was now the cold weather in Colorado? Do you feel like it kept people from going out there?
I don't think so, but I want to just take a step back and just let all our viewers and listeners know the things that we do on this podcast. These are unscripted. We don't spend all week long going over what I'm going to say, what you're going to say. So this is all fresh information. This is all our independent thought process. So, but with that being said, I don't think that I think the people of Colorado are so used to cold weather in certain times of the year. That's not an excuse. It's not a factor.
Yeah. Well, let me show you what I discovered, Mud. I want to start with a great state that you come from. You hail from Texas, and I'm going to put some of
Texas.
these I'm going to put some of these figures up on the screen so people won't get lost with the numbers. But in Texas, the number of Republican votes that were cast were 2,220,000 votes. And the number of Democrat votes that were cast was 908,500 and some votes.
Right, and
So,
that's gonna throw off the percentage if you watching cable network news outlets. It'll show that there's a plus or minus 2.5 or you can't 2.5 of 900,000 is not the same as 2.5% plus or minus on over 1 million votes or 2 million votes.
right. But in Texas, you would kind of expect that, right? Wouldn't you expect there be more Republicans than Democrats? I mean, the way that these numbers shook out, it's almost like 2.5 times more Republicans voted in that election than Democrats did. But like I said, I would kind of expect that from Texas because I think of Texas as being a red state. But let me run through a couple of states here. Colorado, for example, the state that you're in, you would think it's a Democratic state, right? It's been going blue for a long time. But in Colorado, Republicans, there was 800 and almost 831,000 votes of Republicans and only about 550,000 votes of Democrats. So even in Colorado, there was more Republican votes. Maine, um, there was 107,000 Republican votes, and there was only 64,000 Democrat votes. Minnesota kind of surprised me because Minnesota is a pretty strong Democrat state. Republican votes 330 plus thousand, Democrats 236 plus thousand. But here's the one that just and Mud, I went through every state, I think there was, I forget, like I said, 21, 22. There was only one state that had more Democrat votes in that primary um, than Republicans. I think it was Vermont. It was up in New England. But check this one out. This is the one that floored me. Now, California, I know you think I was born in California. I was not. I was born in Nebraska on a milk train. But in California, the Republican votes 2,100,000 plus thousand. All right, 2,100,000 plus. Democrat votes in California 1,860,000 plus votes. So, so even in these Democrat strongholds, where I mean, it seems like to a lot of us that there's absolutely no chance of winning elections if you're a Republican. They had more people coming out. I don't know. And the thing that really surprised me about it is it was so hard to find, Mud. The information was hidden. They want to show you electoral votes, but they don't want to show you actual numbers of votes. So
Well, and and one thing I joke about is some of these states they're called battlegrounds or grassroots states. The grass is dying. So yeah, the grass is dying so that you don't have roots, and I don't know what you're going to do next. But
well, the big thing that worries me is the last election, because 2022, because there was supposed to be that big red wave, you remember,
right.
that just never happened. And I'm trying real hard not to get my hopes and expectations up, because man, that was a tough night um, in 2022. I do want to I do want to tell you about one other thing. I don't know if you heard about this or not, but at the same time that these primaries are going on, we're having county votes and cities are voting. Well, San Francisco had a vote on local issues on Super Tuesday, and they voted last Tuesday. I think I'm right. Last Tuesday, man, time just runs together, Mud. But by 63%, the residents of the great city of San Francisco, I love that place. I spent a lot of time up there when I was younger. It's got to be one of the most beautiful places in the world, and they've just let it just. It's sad to me what's happened to that state, but 63% of the citizens of San Francisco voted to require drug testing of anybody that was going to get services paid for by the city. So, the food banks, I assume that it would include some financial aid and that kind of stuff. And then to top it off, in that same election, they had another initiative on there that got 60% of the San Franciscans residents vote, and it expanded police powers. It enables now the police of San Francisco to pursue criminals in a more active way, detain them more efficiently, and it approved the use of drones to chase people down through different areas that were involved in criminal activities. So it sounds to me like the people of San Francisco are waking up, my man. I mean, I can I if I grew up there as a kid, as beautiful, and then to see the crap in the streets and the
Mm-hmm.
crime going on. And then one last thing on this. At the same time this is happening in San Francisco, in the state of New York State, for the subways in New York City, the governor of New York, who might, in my opinion, might be the worst governor in the United States of America right now, Kathy Holcomb, she gave the order to put the National Guard and state police into the subway to check the bags of people that are getting on and off of trains.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like there's starting to be a flip flop in the ethical views of some of these people. What I mean by that is they're going from deontological ethical issues to utilitarianism. And what that basically means is in deontology, the theory is, and this was by Immanuel Kant, you don't cheat, you don't steal, you don't lie, based on a consequence, versus utilitarianism, which is basically defined as doing the most amount of good for the most amount of people. And it sounds like with them implementing all these new things, the drones and putting the guard, they're flip flopping from being a deontological theory to a utilitarianism ideology.
Well, I think that's part of the movement. And you and I don't know how you see this, but first of all, before we go there, I just want to point out one thing about Kathy Holcomb and the New York subways is they're checking bags, Mud. Now, the problem on the subways in New York is crazy people and homeless people and all this
Right.
stuff. They don't have bags.
Right.
And I've seen a couple of the people in New York on Thursday and Friday. I seen a few of the news people out there interviewing them. They are not happy about this. They're going, what? I mean, it's hard enough to get around anyway, and now we're standing in lines like we are at the airport,
Yeah.
having National Guard people look in our bags. What the? What? Come on! And instead of going in and policing the place and making sure it stays clean and safe, she's got them at the entrances checking the bags. It goes exactly to what you're talking about, because the type of or the philosophy, the theory of government that's used is directly related to the mentality of these people. And they aren't the smartest. They aren't the smartest people in the world, Mud. And the utilitarianism and the ethical doctrine, which is basically based on utility, right? That's where the word comes from.
Correct.
How useful is it? What good is it going to do? Da, 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 da. But the big problem with this, Mud?
What's the push?
Who's the judge? Who decides? Who decides what's good and what's bad? Holcomb is a perfect example. Oh yeah, we're going to do good. We're going to put security in the subways. No, she puts security getting into the subways. So all the riffraff. I'm trying to be very respectful here of human beings. The riffraff that is infesting that place.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt. And there's that Marine that's still, I think he's still on a trial. I don't know if he's on trial, but he's still in the public scene as far as and I think we all remember this. The Marine that was being threatened and other passengers being threatened on the subway. and he took it upon himself. He took initiative, like every Marine is taught, to subvert the situation.
Yeah, he
Stop
stepped in
use.
and fixed the problem, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's Marines everywhere. There's Army. There's airmen. Now we got National Guard. Are they going to issue combat action ribbons to the National Guard now because an illegal alien disrupted or caused a bad situation? I hate, man. I don't like talking about murder and violence and stuff like that. Ironically, as a Marine, but I am older and wiser in my years. But they're going to give them combat action ribbons. Is that the next step? Because there's no need for the National Guard to be down there. They just stop defunding the police and actually pay the cops to do their damn job and let them do their job and stop restraining them. You
Right.
wouldn't need all this. This
I
is
think
taxpayer dollars that are being wasted yet again under this administration.
Yeah, no, I agree. The biggest problem that they have right now is the past, because everybody knows what life in America was like 6 years ago. People remember when Giuliani came into New York and cleaned it up. And now New York has been on a downward spiral for longer than some other places in the country, because they had that who is that mayor?
The
Uh,
Cuomo.
yeah, no, after him they just kind of run him out of town. The big tall guy. Anyway, people know people know what the world was like, what their world was like. People know what New York City was like, what California was like, and there's just no defending a lot of the stuff that's going on out there.
That's true. Yeah. What else is going on in the world?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that um, anybody that knows me um, knows that I'm a pastor. I do. It's one of the things that I meant to mention at the beginning of the podcast is I have a podcast also that I'd like you guys to look for if you're a Christian and you're interested in Christian things and what's going on in the world. It's called Things They Didn't Teach You in Church. But one of the things that I've kind of seen happening, Mud, is that a couple of years ago, we saw this very first coining of the word um, domestic terrorists, and they started calling parents that were going to school board meetings to protest against some of the stuff that we've been seeing going on in our schools. Um, and such as the drag queen storytelling. We even had that. I don't know if you heard that. We had that in Parker,
Wow.
and they were going to do it at the library, and word got out, and man, they shut it down. And you talk about being quiet. You could hear crickets for a couple of months from. The, I mean, again, academia and the world of quote unquote education, which includes libraries most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
they have some of the most liberal, wacko people. Anyway, they were going to do they had it all lined up. They had some drag queens coming in Parker, Arizona, and they shut it down. But this domestic terrorists, parents being domestic terrorists, was something that got coined back back during
I
the
recall that.
COVID days.
Yeah, I
And
recall.
now it's evolving because more and more you're seeing
People standing up for their beliefs. Yeah.
and they're coining a new phrase here, Mud. You watch for it. You're going to see it more and more. It's called violent Christian extremism, and and I'm telling you what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it. In fact, a couple of the articles that were bouncing around this last week, um, they're beginning to compare Christians who are not going to stand for this stuff.
Right.
They're comparing them to the Muslim uh, protesters back that have been going on for a while. The problem with the comparison is Christians don't want to wipe everybody else out. You know, they just want their world to be okay. They want their kids to be able to go to school without hearing this ungodly satanistic stuff. And the radical Muslims want to exterminate anybody that's not Muslim. I mean, that's basically the philosophy. And that's a huge difference. But they're running this, you watch, violent Christian extremism. It's going to be, you're going to see it all over the place, especially leading up to this election, because
Right.
they're saying that's who the enemy is. If you listen to Biden the other night, that was 2 nights ago, I guess.
Thursday, State of the
Did
Union.
did you watch that speech?
I did. I did. And
More power to you, brother.
you know what? It was almost better than the actual commentary after the fact, with all the nonsense of trying to explain and I heard some of the most ridiculous things, and it whatever. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I agree. But if you break it down to the most simplistic, basic, common core thing of what the State of the Union is designed for, it is to inform Congress of the state of the union and where it's going. That was a political ad, is what happened on State of the Union, in my opinion. If you have to, if you can stomach to rewatch it, go for it and look at it through the eyes of a political somebody that's watching TV, and all of a sudden you get an ad for a congressman or senator or a president that's rerunning for and no pun intended rerun, because he was a good actor. But yeah, it was a political ad. It was not he didn't address the State of the Union. I don't even know how he's being supported by anyone, because he went after the Supreme Court. No one has ever done that's unheard of, and it's not his job to do that. That's why we have separations of power: executive, legislative, and judicial.
That's right. Yeah, I heard somebody say, "Hey, they ought to be charging him for running a campaign ad for that." You know, I think that's one of the only things that I would say was a negative about Trump pretty much wrapping the whole thing up so early, is it allowed him to come out in that address to the country, State of the Union, and turn it political, totally against Trump, rather than worrying about people he's running against or people that Trump's running against. And it was there. You know, I was watching. Oh, I know. I was watching on Fox, and when I tuned in, I was watching a recording that was a couple hours later because I figured, I want to see what's going on with this thing. So I tuned in, and they had a picture of the door at the White House that he was going to walk out on his way to Congress to give the speech. And when I turned this recording on, he was already 20 minutes late. Now I heard reporting yesterday that said that his total lateness was 20 minutes for this speech. It was close to an hour, Mud. I was watching it. He was over a half an hour late before he ever walked out of that door at the White House, and then they had to go, and then he hobnobbed with all the people. It was ridiculous. I mean, you talk about showing no respect to the American people. They tune in to find out the State of the Union, and you can't even be on time. And then, man, have you ever seen him have so much energy?
I've
I
never seen
mean,
him have that much energy, and I'm not going to speculate. But if you
well,
recall last,
everybody else is. You don't have to. Everybody you listen to is speculating on
yeah,
what they
well,
thought
and
him up with.
that's what I try to get away from on this podcast is speculation. I think it invites negative attention. But uh, some of the things that were prominent and be honest, we had a State of the Union party over here. I made food and we had drinks and we all just gathered around the TV to see it, and it literally everyone in the room 5 minutes was on their phone playing a game because it was so pointless. It was ridiculous. The things that he was coming up with, or the you know, I don't know if everybody knows this, but it's very apparent, and you can tell by the rhetoric. He is not writing his speeches. Some young graduate from law school, probably Harvard, because they plagiarized everything, uh, wrote this ridiculous speech, and it didn't address anything but his reelection.
Exactly. It was a campaign speech, no doubt about it. Now, I respect you for not wanting to speculate, but I am going to speculate a little bit, and this is from a personal experience point of view. And just going to say I don't want to dwell on it, but I'm telling you, I have a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia in my family. And I'm telling you, and because of that, I've taken some classes on it, done some workshops, and so on and so forth. And I'm telling you, you know what sundowners is. The later it gets in the day, the more out there people with dementia and Alzheimer's gets. But there is different different kinds of this disease. It's a terrible, nasty thing to see somebody that you love go through this stuff. But I'm telling you right now, Mud, one of the main things is anger, and the more the angry about everything. They don't even know what they're angry about, but they're mad as hell, and they aren't going to take it anymore. Part of the disease. And I watched him on the clips that I watched of the State of the Union. He's an angry old man, dude.
You could
And
tell
I
by you could
I
tell by the
can't
tone of
help,
his voice he was angry.
yeah, I can't help but think that that's what a lot of that's all about. Is I mean, I know he likes to try to be tough. I'm tough, and corn pop, and I wrap a chain around that boy. But this was he was angry about everything, and
Well, I'm
I
wondering if
don't.
he's interested in still taking Trump behind the school gym. Tough guy.
Yeah, yeah, man, I'll tell you, I'd like to. I'd pay. We do pay per view on that. I'd be lining up to see that. I hope they had some nice bleachers out behind the school gymnasium, man.
Yeah,
'Cause I'd be paying for that one.
right. But I think moving on, we should probably talk about something that that I brought up earlier in the pod is that we talked about deontology, utilitarianism, the differences, and those are just basic things. It gets into more finite stuff as you get deeper into theory and ethics and stuff. But one thing that stood out last week that I observed was this federal what is he Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and he what just blew me away was when he said that we're predicting inflation's going to drop and wages are going to go up and X, Y, and Z. And I'm trying to figure out to myself, how do you predict human behavior when it comes to monetary issues like what Jerome Powell is responsible for? I don't understand how you if Jim Bob doesn't want to go to Walmart, Jim Bob's not going to go to Walmart. If Mud doesn't want to buy $3.06 worth of gas, I'm not. I just won't drive. So how can you predict what the Federal Reserve is predicting based on human behavior? Because now you have people that are not even from this country. Are you basing those figures on the illegal immigrants that are going to steal cars and then put gas in it because they have to when they steal it? It's hard to predict. You almost can't.
Yeah. Like I've said before, I think the fix is in on all of this stuff. I think there are economic powers, in other words, people in high places that are making decisions that just make no sense, and they know that they aren't going to pay a price right now because they're manipulating the markets. That's why the stock market keeps going up and the profits of these companies keep going down. And the Federal Reserve, they just keep printing money. And for some reason, Mud, now you can go back in history, you can see this happen in societies all the way back to biblical times. The Roman Empire is probably the most obvious one. You can't, you cannot sit here in this great country that's less than 300 years old and believe that what we're doing doesn't make any difference, and we're so big and so strong that it's not going to take us down. It's happened for thousands of years, and once you start playing this game of it doesn't make any difference, such as printing money. Well, my 8-year-old grandson will tell you, if you say, Reverend, what if you just keep printing money, printing money, printing money? What's that going to do to the money? You go, well, there's going to be more of it, Grandpa. I go, yeah, there's going to be more of it, but how much is it going to be worth? He goes, well, if there's more of it, it's not going to be worth as much as it was. I mean, a kid
8-year
can
old
tell you this. Yeah,
gets it.
8 years old can tell you this stuff. And Jerome Powell, I've got a. He said he is worried. I watched a couple of clips of him this last week. He said that cutting interest rates too soon or too much, that's the big issue. What are interest rates? They're up around
I think over
8,
7.
right? 7.5, 8. He said that cutting them too soon or too much could cause inflation to reignite. Um, but he also said cutting them too little or too late could like put us in the dumpster. So he's going, well, I'm walking. I don't know, man. I, uh, I really truly believe that China would like to become their currency become the reserve currency, and if that happens to the American dollar, if we're no longer the reserve currency
That's a
for the
wrap.
world,
Yep.
it's going to hurt us a lot. I think in a lot of ways it'll help us straighten out this idea that we can just print. And I think, one thing I think is arguable, but I think it's true. I think America is in a better economic place than most of the rest of the world. So if the proverbial oscillator hits the fertilizer down the road, then I think we'll do as good as anybody, but it ain't going to be pretty, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and you think about it, I like that, the proverbial, I like that, because the proverbial way that this government is governing United States citizens is they think we're mushrooms, keep us in the dark and feed us shit.
Yeah, I prefer fertilizer mud, but
Okay, we can edit that.
all right. Well, believe it or not, we're moving through this. One thing, there's only, before we get to what are they doing now or what are they doing today? Before we get there, there's one thing that's going on in the world that I, from my background, I just want to point out to people that are interested. This war that we see going on in actually all the wars that we see going on, but specifically the war that we see going on in Israel or um, in Palestine, and also the war that we see going on in the Ukraine. I would say to you, folks, you need to take the blinders off. You need to sharpen up a little bit, maybe dig your Bible out, do a little reading Matthew chapter 24, Luke 21, Mark 13. Try Revelations a little bit, maybe chapter 15. Folks, this is all biblical. This is all laid out. We are seeing prophecy come to term. That's all I'll say. It's just that as we watch this world seem like it's crumbling right before our eyes, it is. So that's all I got to say about it.
Okay. Yeah. So my person of the week. What are they doing these
Oh,
days?
what are they doing these days? Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I yet again I picked a subject that is no longer with us. This person died in 2016,
I
and
saw that. I was a little surprised at that, Mud, but yeah.
so the person is somebody from back in the 90s that was involved with and some of well, hopefully all of our viewers remember the 976 phone numbers that it's 50 cents to call in and it's $1.25 every minute after that. This person was Miss Cleo. I call her Chloe, but it's Miss Cleo. Um, Born and raised a native of California, and she was the spokesperson for a corporation that was involved in this 976 business. I know a few people that did call her, and if there is some viewers that and listeners that don't recall, it revolved around psychic tarot card readings over the phone from somebody that actually went to I think a Jamaican Catholic, or at least a school.
I was going to point that out, that that she had a Catholic background.
Yeah. But yeah, so for I don't know, $15, you can get a reading on your life, and she was the one that was telling you you're going to get married, you're going to have multiple kids, whatever she could come up with. It was comical. Of course, at the time when all this was going on, we all
Now,
had landlines.
did you ever call her, Mud?
That's what I was getting to. I never did,
Okay.
but yeah. Fortunately, I had parents that monitored and dictated when I can and can't use the phone, and they were, solid parents, or they are solid parents. They're still with us, but I know some people that actually did, and their parents got phone bills that were in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars over this nonsense. And so I was hoping that I could find something like, what is she doing these days? But unfortunately, she left us in 2016.
Okay, so I have a question about this whole thing, because you were talking about 7 something numbers. Is that the pay numbers back in? I remember 900 numbers.
976.
Oh, 976. Okay. All right. So, but you never called her, huh?
Never called.
Okay. Well, to tell you the truth, now, so the folks know, we do talk about who we're going to talk about as far as what are they doing now. And when you told me Cleo, I immediately thought of one of my favorite gal singers from when I was growing up, and that was Dionne Warwick. You remember Dionne?
I remember Dionne Warwick.
I know, this will probably surprise a lot of people out there, but you're a little younger than I am. I know we look about the same age, but you are a little younger. So when you said Dionne, I was happily surprised. But I mean, I remember Cleo. Um, she was actually, I believe she was a product of Dionne Warwick, because back uh, before Cleo hit the scene, Dionne had she was the spokesperson for oh, what was it called? I should know it. Psychic Hotline.
Yeah,
And do you remember that?
I do recall.
I think it was the same thing, 900 numbers. She was out there on info commercials back in if you're watching TV at 3 o'clock in the morning, here comes Dionne on the TV with
Yeah.
the psychic hotline, the 900 number. Call and find out what your future is. Now, she's still alive, I might add. Okay, first of all, Mud, let's apologize. We've got some technical problems going on. I got your picture up there, but we don't, the video's not working. You're with me with the audio, right?
That's correct.
All right, well, let's wrap this thing up. We were talking about Dionne Warwick and the whole psychic network, and how I think she was really the forerunner to Cleo, but she's still around kicking. And they asked her this question about back when you were doing this, Dionne, did you believe in psychics? And her answer was, well, I believed in them as much as anybody else, but I tell you what, it was paying the bills. So
That's right.
so there you go.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up. You got a prediction for us this week?
I do have a prediction. However, I think my prediction is overshadowed by what my hopes and dreams would be, and that is who Trump would consider as Attorney General. And that's a very important position, seeing the way that he and other United States citizens have been treated over the past 3 years. That's going to be, to me, it's going to be more of a decisive. It'll be a decision that is probably more looked closely at than who he would put on the Supreme Court. So,
or vice president. I think it'd be more important than who he chooses for vice president, actually.
Yeah, more or less. And so my prediction, my hope is that he would pick someone, and I'll just throw her out. I'm gonna throw her out there. Judge Judy. She should be the Attorney General. She is a nonsense New Yorker, highly educated, has abundance of experience and knowledge that she could do wonders for this country. She does a lot for family courts, and she spent over 20 something years in family courts and stuff, and did a lot of good. And she's no nonsense. I don't see why Donald Trump would not pick somebody that's aligned with that thought process, philosophy that Judge Judy has.
I think that would be a great one. How about your boy Gowdy? Trey?
Oh, that's vice president.
Huh?
That'd be my prediction for vice president.
Oh, vice president. There you go. That's right. See, now for Attorney General, just a little follow-up. I would love to see Ted Cruz. I think Judge Judy would be great. I don't think that's going to happen. Ted Cruz might.
It could.
Okay, so it's going to be Judge Judy for Attorney General. My prediction this week, I hate to be so dark about everything, but it's what I see coming. My prediction for this week is that there's going to be a terrorist attack in this country by some coalition of people that came into this country illegally through the porous, unprotected border that we have right now before the November election takes place. I think that's
very, very possible.
I think it's more than possible. I think they're planning on it.
Well,
okay, Mud. Hey, take care of yourself, brother.
Okay, till next week. Adios.
Adios, amigo.